Elizabeth comes back.
It's weird. Okay, we're on.
Good evening. I'm calling to order the regular meeting of the Rosstown Council Thursday, June 10, 2021. The first item of business is the call to order and roll call.
Councilmember Breckus,
Here.
Councilmember Kircher,
Here.
Councilmember Cool,
Here.
Councilmember McMillan,
Here.
and Mayor Robbins.
Here. The next item is the agenda. Has the agenda been posted?
Yes, it has.
And then we have two sets of minutes to approve. The first is from April 29 and the second is from May 13. Are there any corrections to either of those minutes other than the ones that got sent out? Then is there a motion to approve the April 29 minutes?
So moved. I'll second.
Okay, let's take the vote. Councilmember Breckus
Aye.
and Councilmember Kircher,
Aye.
Councilmember Cool,
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan,
Aye.
and Mayor Robbins.
Aye. And then the May
And
13
motion
minutes.
passes as amended.
Sorry. And now the May 13 minutes. Is there a motion to approve these?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Breckus
Aye.
and Councilmember Cool
Aye.
and Councilmember Kircher,
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan,
Aye.
and Mayor Robbins.
Aye.
And the motion passes as amended.
Have the demands been met?
Yes, they have.
Thank you. Now we're at number 5, open time for public expression. This is limited to 3 minutes per speaker and on items that are not on the agenda. The council can't respond to items because they're not on the agenda. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak?
I don't see anyone with any raised hands. So no.
Okay. Number 6, the mayor's report. The Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority held a community workshop last week to help residents prepare for a wildfire. The risk of fire in Marin is extremely high. Here's a summary of the recommendations. Number 1, register for alerts at Alert Marin. Number 2, plan where you'll go. Plan your route and destination. Practice opening your garage door without power or purchase a battery backup opener. Choose someone outside the area to serve as a contact for your family. Number 3, plan what you'll take. Set aside long sleeve shirts and long pants made of cotton or wool, sturdy shoes or boots, leather gloves, which are needed if you need to move smoldering branches. Pack a go bag and include food, water, extra clothes, medicines, first aid kit, flashlight, glasses, contact lenses, sanitary supplies, baby wipes, diapers, phone, laptop, chargers, wallet, extra cash, pet crate, pet food, and a battery operated radio. Bring important documents, including passports, birth certificates, insurance policies. Have these ready ahead of time in one place. And keep a list on top of the go bag with the last minute items that you'll be adding, your wallet, the phones, computers, chargers, documents, and medicines. Number 4, on leaving. Close all the doors, including the garage doors and windows, to prevent embers from blowing in. Leave the door unlocked and leave garden hoses attached to spigots for firefighters. Move flammable items away from the house, patio furniture, jute doormats, barbecues, heaters with propane tanks. Number 5, harden your home with fire-resistant roofing, siding, and vents. Install dual pane windows. Replace fences within 5 feet of your dwelling with non-combustible products. Keep roof and gutters clear of debris. Create 5 feet of defensible space immediately around your home. Plants shouldn't be adjacent to the house. Cut lower tree limbs. Store firewood away from your house. And then finally, when red flag warnings are first announced, make sure your car has a full tank of gas or charge your electric vehicle. And for more information, please go to firesafemarin.org. Number 7, council committee and liaison reports. Are there any reports from any of the committees that met this past month? Councilmember McMillan.
Yes, I've been attending the Marin Wildfire Prevention Authority Board, and I'm happy to say that at the end of May, it approved its work plan for the next fiscal year. So projects are moving ahead, which is very exciting. One thing I'm doing tomorrow with the president of the board and others is looking at some trees at the Indian Valley College of Marin campus. We're noticing that lots and lots of trees are dying because of the drought, which is only going to exacerbate a very, very dangerous fire season. So we all need to be taking all that stuff that Elizabeth just mentioned very, very seriously. Thank you.
Are there other committee reports? I can just do a quick update of the Marin Economic Recovery Committee. And there was an interesting discussion about the parklets and how long they should remain. And it was pointed out that it's not really a parklet because it's not a park and it's not public, it's a restaurant street space. And many towns have benefited from having these extra spaces, but many merchants have said that it doesn't benefit them. And so there will be quite an interesting discussion about how many of these outcroppings of the restaurants for outdoor dining, how many will stay, how many will be brought back in, and maybe there's some mid-ground with a sidewalk presence and not a street presence. So that'll be something that'll be interesting to hear about over the upcoming months. The next is staff and community reports. So that would be Town Manager Joe Shin.
Thank you, Mayor. Following up on the mayor's remarks and Councilmember McMillan about being prepared for a wildfire season, we had encouraged residents to sign up for chipper days, where you could get rid of your dead and dying tree limbs, brush, and bushes. And the sign up is through Fire Safe Marin. We have an article in the morning after, and also we'll continue to send out periodic emails. We're in some neighborhoods this week and next week in other neighborhoods in Ross. And also there's the July 4th week. And then there's going to be another round in September and October. Please sign up. It's a great chance to get rid of some of your material that is fire prone in your lot. Outdoor dining. Happy to say that on Friday, June 18th, starting at 4 p.m., we'll have our next outdoor dining event, shutting down the Redwood Elbow by the Common, and having outdoor tables there, as well as obviously people picnic on the lawn, or now you could dine indoor in restaurants. In addition for this time is we're partnering with Ross Property Owners Association and Ross Auxiliary in the town to add live music on both Friday and Saturday, going from 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. So should be a fun time. Weather forecast looks good. Everybody should be there. Another thing coming up is Coffee with the Chief, or Coffee with the Chief. The next one's going to be August 13th at Town and Crumpet with Police Chief Pata, and come meet the chief and talk about things in the town of Ross. So that's going to be August 13th from 10 a.m. to noon at Crown and Crumpet, and we'll send out a town-wide email before that event. Those are my items.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone from Ross Property Owners Association who would like to give an update?
Yes, I'm bringing in Mike Gilfillan.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mike.
You're muted.
Mike, are you there?
There.
There, just,
Good, that worked.
all right, whatever we did. We're just about halfway through the year, and our membership numbers are looking good. Our 2021 goal is 340 members.
You're not on the screen.
And I think our improved communications effort and the addition of the Ross Rec auxiliary board members have helped to improve our membership numbers. Here are some updates on the current projects we've worked with and shared ideas with Joe. The drinking fountain at Natalie Coffin Green Park has been installed and looks great. There'll possibly be a future ceremony to commemorate the new installation after the parking lot's repaved. All the flower baskets have been replanted and they look good. We continue to work on the post office project with the installation of the photos and a recent cleaning effort. The initial designs are completed for the enclosures that will go around the 2 portable bathrooms by the bike path and Natalie Coffin Green Park. Drawings are being sent to design review for comments and bids are also in process. We continue to work on updating our website, streamlining communications, and redesigning the RPOA logo. I think that about does it, but if you've got any questions or comments, please let us know.
Are there any questions for Mike? Mike, thank you very much.
Great, thanks.
Item 9 is the consent agenda. Would any members of the council like to take any items on the consent agenda off the consent agenda? Would any members of the public like to take any items on the consent agenda off the consent agenda?
There are no raised hands.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Move to approve consent.
Thank you, Judith.
I'll second.
Oh,
I
Okay,
think Elizabeth Breckus beat me to it once again.
okay, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
And Mayor Robbins?
aye.
So the motion for consent items A through F passes unanimously.
Thank you. Now we're at item 10, which is a presentation by the Marin Municipal Water District about conserving water during the drought.
So I am going to bring in, I thought there was a Carrie Pollard. I don't see her name in here. Oh, here she is. Maybe this is Marin Water here. Hopefully this is her. And also Larry Bragman I brought in.
Good.
It sure is. Thank you for the opportunity to present. And I'm here with Director Bragman as well. Director Bragman, do you have a few words before I jump into the presentation, or shall I just get started?
No, just good to see you all on the Ross Council, Mayor Robbins and the council. So nice to be here.
Very good. So I'm Carrie Pollard, the Water Efficiency Manager with the Marin Water. I'm going to cover briefly water supply conditions. I'll touch on current actions taken by the board, and then wrap up with programs that we've launched to support our customers in our call to action for drought response. Just briefly, 100% as a reminder, 100% of our water is locally sourced. 75% of it comes from Mount Tam. And then on average, 25% comes from Sonoma County's Russian River water system. And as you're probably well aware, we're in a historic drought. The last 16 months of rainfall have been the lowest on record in more than 140 years. As a result of that reduced rainfall, we currently have our water storage is at 47%. Usually at this time of year, we're at 87%. So it's quite concerning. And so just as a good reminder, what does that really mean for us? This is a histogram showing reservoir levels all the way back to 1984. And there's been a few years, 1990 when it was low, maybe 2014 when it was low. But if you see 2021, it's incredibly lower than anything we've ever seen since 1984 when we increased our water supply capacity. And so as a result of these low reservoir levels, the board did enact a call for action. They actually called for a water shortage emergency in the end of April 20th. And they called for a 40% reduction in overall water use district-wide. So let me just clarify that. So we're not asking every customer to reduce 40%. That might be unreasonable for some of our customers, but we are asking every customer to do all they can to reduce their water use to achieve a 40% reduction district-wide. So as a community, we're asking everyone to step up and do their part. The easiest way to reduce demand as we move into summer is through irrigation. And the board did enact some specific restrictions on irrigation, which will help us meet this 40% goal. Specifically, we've restricted overhead spray irrigation, which is generally used to irrigate lawns, to 2 days per week. So only 2 days a week for irrigation to lawns is what we should be seeing in the community at this time. Drip irrigation has remained at 3 days per week, and we do allow an exemption for hand watering, which does not mean hand watering to supplement irrigate other plants. Is really meant to be hand watering for veggies, or maybe someone who's stopped irrigating everything on their landscape, which would be wonderful, and we would really appreciate that. But they could hand water those few plants that they really, you know, feel like they want it to save during the drought. There's a number of other restrictions listed here that are new. I'm not going to go through them, but they are posted on our website at marinwater.org/conserve for anyone who may be interested in diving into them a little deeper. Oops, skipped one. So how are we doing? Looking at meeting our 40%. Each week, the district publishes this tracker. It's a weekly comparison of where we are over this last week. This last one was June 3rd, ended on June 3rd, compared to our baseline. So for the week of June 3rd, we were at 11%. We heard some really good news today. On Friday, we'll be posting an updated tracker, and we're at 18%. So we're starting to see some movement, which is great. It's definitely the direction we want to go in, but it's taken a month to get to 18%, or actually over a month now to get to 18%. And so, you know, it's important that we help get the word out to the community, and we help educate our neighbors about the concerning water supply conditions we're in. I want to spend some more time, most of my time here, really talking about programs and offerings that the district has developed or has in place to assist customers in reducing their demand. We offer free phone consultations to walk you through any of our conservation programs and look for rebates that might work for you. We would do this for residential customers, businesses, multifamily customers, even someone who doesn't necessarily get a water bill. If they live in an apartment building, they can reach out to us and we can walk them through some tips that they can be taking to reduce use. We offer free low flow hardware, free of charge again, free shut off nozzles. So those are your hose and nozzles, low flow shower heads, faucet aerators, and et cetera. We're actually having an event this Saturday, a drought drop by. We have 3 locations throughout the service area where customers can drive up, ride their bike, walk, however they like to get there. And we will give them a bucket, shower timers, shower heads, you know, hose and nozzles, leak detection tablets, a whole drought kit along with tips. And so those 3 locations are the Mill Valley Community Center, the San Rafael Community Center, and our Marin Water offices. That event is from 9 to 1. So if you're interested, come on by and pick up a kit. Again, focusing on irrigation, we wanted to offer some programming to help customers really take that leap to getting rid of their lawn. We've updated or increased our rebate amount for our lawn replacement program from $1 per square foot to $3. So it was quite a significant increase, and we're really hoping that that will motivate our customers to take that leap to get rid of their lawn permanently. We are recommending that you not replant now, right? Replanting during the drought is not a good idea. It will stress those new plants out tremendously. So we're hoping folks will wait until the drought is over to replant. We've also launched a Mulch Madness program, is what we're calling it. It's a free mulch installation service. So if you perhaps don't want to get the $3 per square foot, you'd rather have someone come out and do the work for you free of charge. We're working with the Conservation Corps of the North Bay, and they're educating local youths to actually do this work for our customers free of charge. They'll go out, they'll put cardboard, compost, and then wood chips or mulch on top, cap all the irrigation, and then again, we hope that you'll replant that area in the fall when, you know, hopefully the drought's over. And if it's not the fall, whenever the drought ends, that would be a good time to replant. We have some smart irrigation controller rebate programs that we've launched, which are These are self-adjusting controllers based on the weather, so they're very handy. They don't require someone to think about adjusting their controller; they do it for them. Those programs are listed there, and we also offer a clothes washer rebate. Again, all the details, terms and conditions, and program information are available at marinwater.org/rebates. We have two programs that are really focused on alternative water sources, gray water and rainwater. First up is the gray water laundry to landscape rebate. We're offering a $100 discount on a gray water kit. We do require participation in informational webinar so folks can learn about what gray water is and how to use it safely within their home or establishment. But once that webinar is complete, the incentive is available to you. In addition, for rain barrels and cisterns, we offer 50 cents per gallon of storage up to $1,000. So there's an opportunity to install those types of systems on your property. We're really excited about this flume rebate, which is the first item listed here. It's a device that actually attaches to your water meter. So it does require you to go out and install it, but it just straps onto your water meter. And then it has a bridge that connects in your home to your Wi-Fi. And it provides real-time, up to the minute water use directly to your phone or your iPad or your whatever device you like. It's very helpful in helping customers understand how they're using their water and where they're using their water. It actually breaks down the irrigation versus indoor use for you. So it's very informative. The district's paying $115 for this device, and that requires the customer to only pay $50. So it's a really great tool, especially as far as drought response. We're offering a hot water recirculating system rebate as well. So this is great for customers who may have to wait a long time for their hot water to reach, the furthest fixture in their home. We are offering a $50 rebate, and there's more information on this program, again, on our website if folks are interested or have that issue. Finally, for pool covers, we have enacted a restriction around requiring pool covers, the use of pool covers, and to support that restriction that has been put in place, we've brought back the pool cover rebate, offering $100. We're really hoping that we can encourage our fellow community members to help us spread the word. Through yard signs. Again, our website is a great resource. We have brochures and tips and all sorts of additional information and details, again, available on our website at marinwater/conserve. We also have an opportunity to report water waste if you happen to notice someone that's not complying with our restrictions, or perhaps they generally don't even know that we have these restrictions in place, need a little bit more education. We have an online form, we have a phone number listed there, and an email address. You can let us know, and we'll reach out to that customer to help ensure that they're aware of our water supply conditions and the restrictions we do have in place. So that is the extent of the presentation. I will just briefly mention that you have you all spoke briefly on fire danger, and it is absolutely a concern considering the 2 dry years we've seen. Next Tuesday, the League of Women Voters is having a seminar with myself and a Fire Safe Marin representative talking about fire and drought, which might be a good opportunity to learn a bit more there. But here's our contact information, and myself and Director Bragman will be here to answer any questions you all may have. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much for that very helpful presentation. Are there any questions that council members have about the presentation? Councilmember Breckus and then Councilmember McMillan.
My question is kind of along the lines of what Julie had said earlier about the fact that you've got trees that are stressed and what you do about that. And I know it sounds like you're going to do a report to the League of Voters. Is it the Marin County League of Women Voters? But can you just identify that one issue as an owner of one tree that I'm really, really worried about? I feel like I need to water it extra. And so what is your thought there?
Yeah, so maintenance, with fire danger, maintenance is always a big issue, right? Maintaining tree limbs so that they're not, going to impact your structure if there is a fire is very important. And, I think that maintaining tree health is going to be important to ensure that they don't get overly stressed, is that hand watering opportunity. One thing we have to acknowledge, folks stop watering their lawns and they do have a tree in the middle of their lawn. That tree will get incredibly stressed because it has very shallow roots and it's used to getting regular irrigation. And so installing a soaker hose or, ensuring that it gets hand watered on a more regular basis would be, I would say water well spent is one way to kind of look at that. But tree health is absolutely, it's key to, there's so much value that trees bring, right? So if you're going to spend water, put water on your landscape, putting it on your trees is really something that we would support.
Thank you.
Councilmember McMillan.
Yeah, hi. I'm a master gardener, and one of the things that we are emphasizing is slow, deep watering for trees. So Councilmember Breckus, perhaps you can look on the Marin Master Gardener website and get some tips along those lines. Also, I just wanted to point out that Marin Master Gardeners offers free water walks where two master gardeners will come to residences' homes and inspect their irrigation system and offer tips to reduce water usage. And you can call the Marin Master Gardener Help Desk at 415-473-4204 to make an appointment, or you can also go online to the Marin Master Gardener website and fill out a form. And the Master Gardeners will be happy to come and try to help along those lines as well. I just wondered if you had any more information about the League of Women Voters panel that you're going to be speaking at, because I would love to attend that.
I have a flyer and I will send it to your town clerk and she can distribute it to you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Are there any other questions from council members? All right, are there any questions from members of the public?
There's no raised hands, Mayor.
All right, well, thank you again very much for this very helpful presentation. And let's hope we have a wetter winter next year. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks you guys.
Welcome. So we're moving on to item number 11, which is a public hearing, consideration of adoption of resolution 2206, adopting the fiscal year budget, the fiscal year 2022 budget, setting the parcel tax assessment for fiscal year 2022, amending the town salary schedule, and also council consideration of adoption of resolution 2207 that has to do with the GAN initiative and setting the appropriation limit for fiscal year ending June 2022. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. In your packet, you have both the staff report and the fiscal year 21-22 budget. I'm going to refer to that fiscal year that starts July 1, 21 to June 30, 2022 as fiscal year 22, just to shorten it. The budget is the town's financial plan for the upcoming year and includes revenues and expenses related to the town's operations and capital improvements. The budget's based on the continuing objectives of providing high quality services to the community in an efficient, effective, responsive, and financially responsible manner. The overall budget for all town funds is $10.6 million in fiscal year 22, which is a return back to the levels pre-COVID pandemic. The budget provides for a small general fund surplus, that is revenues in excess of expenses, of $23,412. Over the past 6 years, the town has kept expenses below revenues each year, even during times such as the COVID-19 pandemic, when revenues decreased significantly, while at the same time, we've also continued to save additional funds for future capital replacement needs related to modernizing the deteriorating and obsolete facilities and continuing to take numerous actions to reduce our future pension retirement obligation costs. The emphasis continues to be to sustain financial responsibility and stability as we continue to support our town's 7 goals. The budget provides the current services to town residents as well as new projects and programs that have been discussed at the council during the course of the fiscal year, including the discussion of the capital improvement plan, which is CIP for short, and the 5-year finance forecast at our February 25th council strategic workshop. And then we had our detailed budget workshop on April 29th, when we walked through and discussed each department and each fund. The budget message is at the beginning of your budget document, which is tab A in your binders, and provides the summary of the overall budget. The new projects for the year include additional emphasis on maintaining a safe community and improving emergency preparedness, as well as enhancing maintenance of existing facilities and infrastructure. Some of the new projects include implementing programs to better improve us with the wildfires, which was mentioned through MWPA. We'll have the vegetation management, defensible space inspections, public education, and evacuation routes and enhancements. We have the town facilities master plan, the common landscape improvement plan, adding more community events, an age-friendly Ross strategic plan, a climate action plan update, downtown visioning, including zoning review, the participation in the county flood protection plan and project for the Corte Madera Creek project within Ross, and processing underground utility districts, among other things. We also have over $2 million for improving the town infrastructure and facilities. Related to roadways this year, the project's going to be the Ross Common, a portion of Redwood Drive along the Common, the Ross Post Office parking lot, and a slurry seal of El Camino Bueno. In addition, we'll have the Ross Common landscape improvements and new wells, storm drain master plan, continuation of design and engineering work on the Winship Bridge replacement, and Laurel Grove sidewalk extension project, along with the roadway pavement rehabilitation. That project probably goes over the next 2 fiscal years. And the budget, as we have done in past years, includes an additional $200,000 additional to pay down our future pension obligations to further reduce our future cost. If you, on page 2 of your staff report, you'll see all the budget changes we've made since the April 29 council budget workshop. These changes reflect changes of revenues and expenses that we received from conversations at the workshop, as well as more current information on some of the items. Overall, those changes improved the general fund balance by just over $6,000, increasing the budgeted general fund surplus to the $23,412. In addition, the page 2 chart shows one change to the special revenue funds. The only change has been that gas tax revenues decreased by $2,000. Given the overall size of the general fund budget of $8.9 million and total all funds of $10.6 million, the changes are pretty mild. Related to the Federal American Rescue Plan, ARP, we just received some new information following the completion of the budget document before you. The California Department of Finance released its ARP allocations to non-entitlement cities and towns, which we are one of 291 in California. The allocation to Ross is $586,331. That's greater than our preliminary allocation that looked like it was going to be $461,000. They're going to be releasing 50% of the funds in the coming weeks, and then 50% in June of 2022. None of this money is budgeted, included at this time in the town budget, as discussed in the budget message in your packet and the tab A. The ARP funding needs to be obligated by December 31st, 2024, and spent by December 31st, 2026. And as stated in the budget message, the U.S. Department of Treasury is still continuing to refine and issue additional guidance related to the specifics of how the federal administration interprets the statutory language in ARP. And the interim rules people have been looking were dated May 17th, and they adjust them at least Monday and Tuesday. And they're expecting changes, requesting changes through July 17th. So it's going to be a while till they get finalized. This guidance is all important to understanding how the town can spend the funds. For example, what purposes will be allowable or prohibited, and how some of the specific restrictions will work. At a conference call with the State Department of Finance yesterday, state DOF officials emphasized numerous times that each entity is the prime recipient of the funds from the U.S. Treasury. It's not going through, it's not a state. We're working directly now with the U.S. Treasury. As they said, those rules and guidance are being developed and continually refined by Treasury. In the coming months, we'll get a more clear picture from U.S. Treasury, and we can determine how to modify the budget due to ARP funding. For now, it is not, as I mentioned, in the budget. We can adjust the budget in the coming months when we determine how we could utilize the funds. As we said, that don't need to be obligated till the end of 2024, are spent till the end of 2026. Related to the budget before you, you have a resolution 2206 approving the fiscal year 2022 budget and setting the public safety parcel tax rate, as well as there's resolution number 2207 setting the town appropriation limit as provided in government code sections for the fiscal year ending in 2022. And I am available and staff for any questions you have.
Thank you, Joe, for that really helpful, thorough overview of our budget, and especially for a budget that's not just balanced, but has a little extra. So that's really a wonderful accomplishment. Thank you so much. Are there any questions from council members? Are there any questions from members of the public?
There's no raised hands, Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve resolution number 2206, adopting the budget and setting the parcel tax assessment and amending the town salary schedule?
So
Can we
Julie?
have discussion?
Oh.
Elizabeth, could we have discussion?
Sorry, yes, so there are no questions, but yes, we'll bring it back to the council to discuss. Councilmember McMillan.
Given that I wanted to discuss something. Thank you, Mayor Robbins. I wanted to see if there was any appetite to revisit the budget item for the electric vehicle charging station. I know we discussed that at our budget meeting in April. I continue to feel very strongly that this is important for our town. I think we're one of the few jurisdictions that does not have an electric vehicle charging station. I think Ross School teachers, people who work downtown, people who patronize our businesses could take advantage of this. But I just wanted to see if there was any appetite, given the prior discussion. There didn't seem to be 3 votes. So wanted to raise it one last time.
Thank you,
I-
Councilmember McMillan. Councilmember Kircher?
I'm in favor of this as well. I know we talked about putting conduit in, but I really think this is something that will be increasingly important in the future. I think it's going to move ahead much more quickly than many people realize, the conversion to electric vehicles. I hear a lot about this from MCE, Marin Clean Energy, always talking about electrification of vehicles and that kind of thing. So in terms of Councilmember McMillan's question, is there an appetite for it? I would say yes on my part.
I guess before we had talked about, does putting in a charger really increase electrification, or does it just decrease parking? Which was why I wasn't in favor of it. Councilmember Cool.
I would assume that the ARP money that we get will allow us to use it for something like this. And I would suggest that we don't make any adjustment to the budget now, but wait until we have information about what we can use the ARP money for. I would be very much in favor at that time of considering adjusting our budget to include in some form some kind of electric vehicle charging station.
Councilmember, thank you. Councilmember Breckus.
Yeah, we've talked about this, now a couple times, and I'm kind of getting lost on where we landed. I thought that we ended up saying that we would agree to have a couple spaces dedicated as long as they were optional, because we were concerned that without it being optional, it would kill a space. So meaning you could park there if you were using it as electric, or you could park there, if not. Am I not remembering that right?
I thought we had just agreed that we would put in the conduit and not take over the parking spaces yet. I don't think we said we would put in the entire system and then leave it optional.
That's correct. The budget has currently the budget includes $4,000 to run conduit to there, but nothing else.
Well, I guess what I would say is I thought somebody came up with the brilliant idea, maybe it was you, Bill, that some of these spaces could be optional and then they wouldn't have the problem or concern about killing a parking space. And, if that was the case, I could support that. And I appreciate we're getting that money, and I'm not sure what the money could be used for, Beach, but I could do it now or I could do it then. I'm not really married either way.
Councilmember McMillan.
I did want to point out that there are pretty robust grants available from TAM as well as from MCE. And I've spoken to someone at TAM who said that the cost of putting in these things has gone down so much over the last 5 years. He thought that if we put in a charger, the town would end up paying almost nothing. So I'm not sure we need to wait for the, what's it called, American Rescue money or whatever that's called, because there are grants available now that we could take advantage of. And maybe what we could do is, it seems like there's more of an appetite than what was being presented in April. Maybe Rich could explore having the grants and making sure that we can get those, and explore Bill's idea of having parking available in those slots, even if EV charging was not going on, or maybe during certain hours, they could be dedicated to regular gas guzzling cars instead of EV cars. and we could bring this back at a later time.
That certainly seems reasonable, Julie, because I think that it hasn't been about the money. It's been about, can the town lose even more parking places? And I mean, it's been more about that, and whether putting in a charging station really moves the community forward or mostly just hurts Ross with fewer parking spaces. But I mean, I think that's reasonable to, so pass the budget, you're suggesting pass the budget as it is now, which puts in the conduit, and then keep talking later about, do we have other money that we would use to build the stations if we have a majority who want to build the charging stations? Is that what you're thinking, Julie?
Well, what I was thinking was, I'm intrigued by Bill's idea of, not having them exclusively dedicated to EV charging if, during certain hours. I don't know if that's a viable option. And maybe Rich knows right now. It looks like he knows. Maybe we
Yes.
should let Rich talk.
So it's my understanding that if we build the EV stations, we don't have to have the parking stall dedicated to only EV vehicle parking. We have the option to make it free for anybody to park there. Hopefully the people who don't have an electric vehicle would choose another stall, but that's our option, really, to limit that parking or restrict it or let it be open to anybody who wants to park there. And we did look into the grant options with TAM and MCE, and there are grant funding available. We did install a two-headed charger in the parking lot along the side wall of the police station. That's for employees to charge if they want. That cost about in 2019 about $17,000, between $16,000 and $17,000 for a single station with two charging heads. The total grant funding available right now with TAM, and then there is a piggyback MCE grant, would give us, for a single charge station with two heads, about $13,000. So you might see about $4,000 out of pocket. These are rough numbers, and I am going to be working with a consultant next week to get an idea of what it would cost to install some charging stations at the post office. So we are working towards coming up with a report, and we can bring that back to council at a later date.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Breckus and then Councilmember Kircher.
Well, since my memory is a little fuzzy on the two different times we talked about this, I just want to see if this is consistent. At one point, we talked about putting the charging station closer to Town Hall. And then we thought, no, let's move it down to the in the post office parking area somewhere, because we thought it might be more used. And I don't know, Julie's mentioning the idea of putting time limits or within time limits. And we all know when parking's hard, it's at school letting out and then also at school drop off. And I've seen some signs for charging suggesting that it's 2 to 3 hours regardless, which makes no sense, because if the idea is to provide a charging station for people that want to park overnight and get a full charge, and there's a lot of people that, not a lot, but there's a fair amount of people that live really close to downtown that might take advantage of that. I would hope that whatever parking regulations we have would deal with, scenarios like that, so you don't have to move your car 2 hours, because then it just wouldn't be used overnight. So I'm sure, Rich, you've seen this handled in various jurisdictions. You can come somewhere smart, but I mean, the goal is not to crunch parking even worse.
Councilmember Kircher.
Yeah, I was inspired by all these signs I see on the freeway about when carpool lanes are open or when they're restricted. And I was thinking of something like that if we could do it. So during really busy times, anybody can use that parking space. Otherwise, there is a window during the day when it's not too busy, when people can charge their cars, and overnight too. I mean, it's not that busy after a certain time downtown. It's really school, I think, or maybe farmer's market or something like that. You know, it's really busy downtown. Athletic events, parents picking up the kids and dropping them off. And if we could just sort of get some information or some data about usage, parking, just sample it at different times of the day and then experiment with these, with our own restrictions, assuming that Ross has the authority to do that. I mean, we're essentially creating our own parking ordinance, I suppose, which we have. I assume we have the jurisdiction to do that. I don't know, maybe I should ask Ben.
Yeah, Ben, can we say that it's not restricted to EV vehicles? And then that's the first question. Then the next question is, can we put our limits on how long you stay? Or, you know, when it has to be limited to EV vehicles?
Yeah, so as you were talking, I was Googling that. And I mean, I think I've never seen it, so I'd like to, you know, take a look at that a little bit closer, but I don't see any reason why you couldn't do that. But I just want to make sure there's no state statute. The other thing is obviously grant requirements. I wonder if TAM or MCE have any sort of requirements prohibiting that.
Uh-huh. Because, you know, my concerns have been it takes up parking, but if it's not limited to electric vehicles, I don't have objections any longer. Oh, Councilmember Cool, I see you've raised your hand.
Yes, I am from my service on TAM's electric vehicle committee. I had the and we have not met for quite some time. But when last I knew, there were several levels of charging, to my understanding. There was a quick charge, which was more expensive, and there was a standard charge, which took quite some time. And I'm just wondering if Rich knows about, has any information about that.
I have a little bit of information. So the charging heads that we're looking at, and the one that's similar to the ones we installed in 2019, would be the fast charge type. The only difference between the two the one we installed in 2019, the one we're proposing is the one we're proposing would be we'd be charging, the town would be charging the electrical cost to the customer for the public charging stations. But we don't have to. That's an option, but we would be looking into something like that.
Well, how long does the quick charge take now?
I'm not sure. I don't have an electric vehicle. I'm not really familiar with that rate.
So Joe, for this evening, right now the budget includes town money for the conduit. Is that correct?
Correct. Right now we have $4,000. So the decision is.
And so that's settled. I mean, everyone was fine with that because we discussed that earlier. It sounds like people are fine with moving forward if the space isn't limited to an electric vehicle. But then I think probably the sense is that if it can be grant money and not town money, that would be ideal for installing the charging station. So we don't really need to change the budget for tonight then. Is that correct?
It would be your option. If we adjusted the budget, either we could wait and do it another time. If we did it tonight, I would suggest adding in the $17,000 expense, which is the last time. We'll see if it's changed, but this is for the budget. And then revenue, TAM and MCE grants of $13,000. So it would be a net increase of $4,000. But I would say if you wanted to do it tonight, we'd add it, or we could bring it back later. So the question is, obviously, we want to get the budget adopted tonight with something. So we got to know, are we keeping at the level we are now with just the conduit, or obviously amending the budget to add 17,000 in expenses and 13,000 in revenues?
If we wait a month or so, might we get even more grant money? I mean, will we have a better sense of how we can cover this so that we even get the last 4,000 covered?
I think the TAM grant, TAM changes the grants, and I'd let Rich, I think the current grant expires June 30th. That's 6,000 of this money. That being said, they update grants periodically too. You just don't know what level, if they update when and what level it'll be at that time.
Okay,
Yeah.
council member, oh,
The current round closes at the end of this month. I did put in a reservation for the grant, which was approved, just in case, depending on what would happen tonight. The other consideration is, do we just want to do one, or do we want to do 2 stations? So those type of decisions should be considered too. Do we want just one, or do we want 2 or 3, or things like that? So.
And when you say one, that means 2 charging stations. Each one has two
Yes.
charging spots.
Yes.
The cost I said refers to one with 2 spots of 17,000.
and that's what we had discussed. Councilmember Cool and then Councilmember Breckus. Beach, you're muted.
Before we put in a wiring, we've got to know where we're going to put this thing. Isn't that right?
I thought we had discussed
We
putting it,
discussed that, and Rich, if you could update them.
yeah, I thought it was going to be between the post office and the new kind of grab and go store, because it was the least expensive and it was convenient. It wasn't that the decision, Rich?
Yeah, something like that. So with the post office parking lot paving project getting finalized, and we're going to be ready to go out to bid, I did have to come up with a design for the conduit. So didn't really want to give away the premium parking spaces right next to the shops at Ross Commons. So I'm selecting a couple of stalls in between the Frederick Allen Park and the post office building along that pathway there to run the conduit, and then it just stubs up, and we can always decide later. But I'm not running it all the way to the near the shops and down in that premium parking area, unless we still have time to reconsider that, but not much time.
And that decision was 2 spots, one outlet, 2 spots. And now tonight we're talking about that they wouldn't necessarily be limited to electric vehicles. So, and we could decide that tonight, and we could be sure that we get the grant money that's expires June 30th, correct?
That's correct. But I anticipate another cycle of this grant funding coming up too.
Okay. Let's see, Councilmember Breckus and then Councilmember Kircher.
Thank you. I would be, if staff thought it, well, I guess, it's 2021, and if 2030 is when we're going to go all electric, then I could see actually adding more. I guess I would support passing the budget as is, totally willing and open to, adding some more, but maybe we could find out a little bit more information, make sure that what we're trying to achieve doesn't violate any of the grants that we would try and acquire, making sure that we have the authority to pass these, and, and going at it with a little bit more, thought. But, if it's cheaper to lay the foundation for this now, then maybe it is the right thing. And, maybe with 4 spots, people more know that, hey, this is an optional, space. So I would be supportive of that.
Councilmember Kircher.
Yeah, I'd like to get more information on grant restrictions. How long do we need to have this there? What if 6 months later, we're so sorry we did this, we want it gone? Can we do that? Are we obligated to keep it there for 5 years? And can we implement some sort of a plan where it's open certain hours and then restricted to electric vehicles at other hours? The other thing I'd like to know, though, is assuming there's some third party involved that does the billing and is sort of the intermediary for this. I assume people pay with a credit card or an account or something? I don't have an electric vehicle, so I don't know how it's done, but well, Rich, what happens at the, you know, at the town center? I mean, the for the employees, the stations that are already there. Does the town handle that and just provide that to the employees or charge the employees directly? Or do you use a third-party vendor?
So the one we currently have in the parking lot, it's it just runs off the current PG&E meter that's powering the police station. So we just pay that with the electrical bill. Employees who are interested in having their cars charged are given a little swipe card. They just pull up and they swipe this card in front of it, and that activates the machine. They charge away. So that's how it operates currently.
But I think we discussed for the downtown one that it wouldn't be a free charging, that it would that drivers would pay for the cost of the electricity, correct?
Correct. So that's only slightly different, where it's we would set up a third-party credit card vendor, and it would all be done through the cloud. And I'm running a sufficient conduit to run fiber if we need to these stations. And it's very simple to set up through ChargePoint, the folks who provide these machines, and then to set up a credit card vendor is we have experience doing that with our Trackit permitting software too. So it's fairly easy to do. It's kind of a monthly accounting of the charges that I forward to our accountant, and we need to track all of those types of things. A little bit more work, but not much. Happy to do that in the interest of moving forward with this project.
I guess what I'd be interested in knowing, if we are, to the extent we're using any outside vendors for this, what are their terms? Do they require a certain contract, like a year or 2 years or whatever? I'm thinking of apartment houses where things like laundromats and so forth, they're typically handled by an outside company. They give a cut to the apartment owner.
Mm-hmm.
They handle everything, the repairs, the maintenance, whatever, and it's a contract. I think it's just annual, but is there a similar thing for these? I mean, what are we getting into here?
So it's a similar contract. I don't know if you can always negotiate any type of contract. Joe and I negotiated the contract for Trackit as far as what the fees are for using a credit card, and the town doesn't make any money on the transactions that I know, but the vendor takes a fee every time someone swipes the card. So yes, it's a contract that you work out with these type of credit card company, these vendors, and the one we're using with Trackit to allow people to use credit cards. Joe, I don't think it was even an annual contract. It's just perpetual until we say, we're not doing this anymore, really. So it's as far as the contractual stuff, it's pretty hands off.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Councilmember Breckus.
Well, presumably we get reimbursed for the electricity, right? And then my other question is, given how many people seem to have a Tesla in town, and the fact that Tesla oftentimes gives you like 1,000 hours, or people, has anybody, or can we look at whether or not it's advisable to consider one company versus, Tesla, which seems to be a pretty popular car within the town of Ross?
You mean a Tesla charger? Are there special Tesla chargers? I see.
There are, and then some people get accounts with Tesla that, they don't even have to swipe because they already have, miles or charging built into those contracts.
So what it seems to me is, I think that Julie's interest in pursuing this has, especially with the possibility that it doesn't have to be limited to electric vehicles, has just kind of changed opinions, and that I think there's a real interest in, yes, indeed, going ahead with this. But I think that there's a little bit of a concern. We'd like to know a little bit more about what exactly is the contract and what are we being obligated to. And so I think we certainly, my opinion is we should certainly pass the budget and put in the conduit for the one station, 2 spaces near the post office, between the post office and the shops. Do that tonight. And then 1 month from now or 2 months from now, whenever Rich and Joe can get more details about what the contract would be and are there any limitations, then we go ahead and approve the installation. We risk a teeny bit not getting grant money, but probably not. And it's not very much money anyway. So that's what I think we should do. Is I think we won't solve some of the interesting questions now about what company and what's the contract, and are there any obligations, like can we make our own rules about the cars and which cars park there? Councilmember McMillan?
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Thank you. And thank you all for indulging me in this discussion. I didn't mean to derail the budget discussion, but I feel really passionate that this is a critical issue. So thank you.
I mean, for me, since we could sort of have our cake and eat it too, get the charging stations, but not lose parking spaces in downtown Ross, especially when parking is at a premium. I think that's fine. Well, is there any more discussion or a motion? Councilmember Cool.
I agree with what's being said about how we should proceed. And as a consequence, I move approval of the budget.
So this is resolution 2206.
2206.
Second.
And, do you want to end 2207?
Oh, can I do them both together? Oh, fine. Beach, would
Well,
you
I'll
like
move
to,
the
like,
approval of 2207 also.
fine. And is the second? Fine, also for that. All right, thank you.
All right, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
The budget passes unanimously.
Thank you. So item number 12 is a discussion about how we return to in-person meetings. You remember at a previous meeting, we were told that all councils had to have a video capability, and we discussed whether we'd have a single small computer screen or video operator with a better screen, and we chose the latter. It turns out that most likely it's not a requirement unless the city is 250,000 or more. And so the question is, do we still agree that we want to go ahead with having the council meetings videotaped, and members of the public could join in by phone, but we wouldn't see them? Or would we return to our meetings as we did before, as our meetings were before, that is in-person meetings exclusively? Joe or Linda, do you want to provide any more background? Provide the background.
Thank you, Mayor. You provided much of it. So, yeah, obviously we had this conversation on April 29th. At that time, it looked like Assembly Bill 339 was going to pass, which would have, if it did, would have required us to have, when we start back meetings in person, it would have required people to be able to be at the meetings by the internet and or telephone. Now the current bill only has cities and counties over 250,000 people, which obviously we fell a little short of 250,000. So at this time, it really is a council decision, and we've talked and seen what other Marin jurisdictions are. Of the ones that we have commented, all of them seem to be responded that they are going to provide a remote option for the public once they do return to in-person meetings. Now, we haven't heard from all jurisdictions. I heard one that was possibly not going to earlier, but I don't know. But the ones that responded, are you doing this or not? All of the ones we did hear from said yes, but this really is a council decision. The in-person, when you do come back in person, do you want people to be able to participate by being on Zoom via the internet, Zoom being the likely host.
And since,
Obviously, well, once we have that decision, we'll have other questions about the how. But I guess the first primary question to answer would be, what's council's appetite for allowing participation outside of this in person?
since it's no longer required, it actually doesn't even have to be decided tonight if we weren't sure, correct?
Well, it would be helpful because if we do, we have to start getting equipment here. There's going to be ordering, we need to get cameras installed. We could get the community media center of Marin to install them for free, but a lot of jurisdictions are going out and doing this now. And so it's how long will it take to get the technology installed to be able to do it?
But it
So
wouldn't prevent us from having an in-person, like, if we had the first in-person meeting and then we finally had it set up the second meeting, I mean, there's no consequence, correct?
There won't be a consequence, but I'm just saying the sooner we get in the queue, if council is interested in this, I think you want to get in the queue to get the improvements going because we might be waiting already.
Councilmember Breckus.
I was just going to ask, I mean, I feel like the first question can't be divorced from the how we do it question, because how we do it, I think, impacts, how people might feel about this, or certainly does for me. I mean, if we say we're going to go back in person, then do individual council members have the right to decide otherwise? Are people only going to be allowed to come in who are vaccinated? Is there going to be any social distancing? I can't imagine we would go back in person and not have a remote option, because I feel like we want people to be able to participate even if they're feeling sick or what have you. So I'm not sure that I feel that comfortable with it being decided in that way. I feel like a more full discussion should happen.
But it sounds like you're suggesting we just stick with what we decided at the last meeting, which was to have the video option. Is that what you're suggesting, Elizabeth?
No, I think I would personally feel more comfortable with knowing whether we could limit it to people who are vaccinated and what the council's perspective is on that. And I probably won't feel this way for the rest of our life because I know we're gonna have to live with COVID and everything else. But my personal feeling is, even though now I've got my whole family vaccinated, that, for me to get it right now, it would blow through my family. I probably lose a month of being able to go to the office, see clients. I probably someday we'll see this as a cold, but right now it's just not that. And I don't want to be in a situation of losing a month of work or impacting my kids having to stay home from things. And so I'm still a little bit more on the concerned, cautious side of things in terms of like indoor full capacity stuff.
So that's more a question of when do we come back into the council chambers, not so much once we're fully back, do we have a video option? Like, doesn't it seem like when everyone feels like it's totally safe, then we'll go back into the council chambers. And at that point, that's where I feel like this question comes up. At that point, when we go from Zoom to totally safe in the council, do we want a video option? I feel like that's what we're just trying to decide tonight. And if we don't feel that it's safe to go back, I don't think we go back even with a video option, not until, we don't go back there unless people feel safe.
Well, the way the item is agendized, it says, future return to in-person council meetings and protocols. So, okay, protocols could be, do we allow vaccinated or not? Do we return back unless there's video or not? I mean, it seemed to me, there wasn't a staff report for this item, but it seemed to me that it was a little bit more broad. And I know Joe's proposal was, should we first focus on, do we go back? And if we're going to go back, then let's get the video in place. And my question to the council was, do other people feel like I do, which is, I want to go back, but I want to understand when I go back, what that's going to look like.
Okay. Councilmember Cool and then Councilmember McMillan.
Well, I have I have a question before we start discussion. And that is, we currently can have people phone in to our meetings. If we go back without putting in some television system, will we still be able to have people participate without coming to the council chambers by phoning in?
I don't know what you mean by phoning in. Do you mean through Zoom or do you mean on a telephone? Because it doesn't work well on a telephone.
Well, we have, can we still have a Zoom set up that people could phone in? I mean, they use their telephones. Well, no,
Yes.
they don't. I'm sorry.
We
Can, after we go back, if we don't install any kind of a video system, can we still have people get in by Zoom?
Yes, there would be a dedicated computer that I would run that could be connected to Zoom, and I would be monitoring when people raise their hand and want to speak.
Well, but my understanding, wait, my understanding is though, you all can't be on Zoom like you're in front of it now.
Yeah.
What's gonna happen is we have to set up cameras in the chambers.
Right.
And what we talked about before was there's two ways of setting up cameras. We could have 3 or 4 cameras, and that's the recommendation. And we'd have an operator, because that way people on the Zoom could see what you're doing. You can't have everybody in Zoom in the same room. Otherwise you get feedback. You're in effect on the cameras showing the feed out and they're zooming in. And so, and Linda could have a computer by her so she could see it. Or in other ways, you put screens on the walls. But I believe in all cases, to run a Zoom meeting, we need cameras installed in the chambers to be able to do that so people could see you and staff operating. And if you recall, the conversation was you could put one, and just this was going to be the next part, but I'll go through it now just to remember what we talked back in April. You could have one camera and then you don't need an operator. The problem is the camera will be in the back of the room and everybody would look small. In effect, it would be facing the console and it would be hard to tell who's even talking because you'd be small, and it would be at the back of the heads of the staff and somebody at the podium. So our recommendation, now that doesn't need an operator, our recommendation, if you do want to have people participate from home, that we set it up with the multiple cameras. Linda, I think it was 4 cameras or 3?
It was 4.
4 cameras. And then you have an operator that will be in the back room that will be switching the views. Obviously, there will be like a console view, a staff view, the podium, and they'd switch as needed as different people are talking. Staff would recommend, if we are doing the video option, we do the 4 camera way versus the 1 camera, because I think it will be pretty unsatisfying to be somebody at home and all you see is one static look and can't tell where the sound's really coming from.
Okay, so the answer to my question is, if we don't have some kind of a camera system, we can't have people phoning in.
They can not zoom in.
Can't zoom in.
But I guess they can't see you either without a camera system.
I
No one
keep
can
using
see
the
you.
term phone. We can't have people participating electronically unless we have cameras.
Correct.
They won't be able to see what you're doing to know where.
Well, okay, so is the answer, I'm still a little unsure. Is the answer that if we have cameras, we can't have people participating electronically?
If you have cameras, gives you the ability that people could participate through Zoom or electronically. Without the cameras, they can't be participating.
Okay.
Is
Thank
there
you.
an audio option where the meeting is streamed, by audio and people could, somehow phone in or through a computer, make a comment without a camera? It may not be ideal, but it's just a question, is an audio only an option for people to hear the meetings and for council members to hear comments from people at home. We haven't talked about that. I don't know if that exists.
I'm not
That's what I'm trying to
sure.
find out.
An audio only option. Because I think that we want people to be able to participate, and it may be that the best is just with the camera option that we discussed and approved at the last meeting. But if, perhaps there's some simpler way. Councilmember McMillan.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree with what you just said, Elizabeth. Mayor Robbins. I think we want to have as many people participating as easily as they can. We don't want to force people to come to town hall if they don't feel comfortable. I'm sorry to say, but based on how things are going, who knows when we're going to have another pandemic or another, thing where we have to deal with this kind of an issue. So I think the sooner we get the technology installed and the sooner we can go back to meeting in person with the option of allowing residents to participate remotely, the better off we'll be.
The only thing I think I disagree about, Julie, is I'm not so keen on the sooner part. I don't feel like, I don't see the cameras as a way of getting us there sooner. I feel like when the pandemic settles down and we're comfortable, that's when we get there. But once there, then, there should be an option for people to participate. But I don't think staff and council members should be in an in-person meeting if the safety is questionable, just because people can participate, from home, because they can participate from home with Zoom, of course. So,
but the bottom line is we're all vaccinated, right? So I don't see why we would wait if we're all vaccinated,
I guess I'm kind of an alarmist, but there are variants out there. The children aren't vaccinated. We're not vaccinated against variants. The vaccine's 95%, but not perfect. So I don't know. I am a little more conservative about when it's totally safe for everybody to be in a room together. But I think that's a separate discussion as when do we move back in person. I think tonight the question is, when we do move in, should we have cameras so people can participate if they don't want to come to a meeting? And it's kind of not a pandemic issue, it's just a convenience issue. And I think we all agree that we should offer that to residents, because we've all kind of lived with this technology for the last year and it's been very beneficial. And so it's just, do we stick with the cameras we decided in April, or is there some simpler way? And it doesn't really sound like there is. I don't know. Councilmember Cool, what's your comment?
Well, first of all, I think we have agendized tonight more than just whether we're going to have cameras. We have agendized what protocols we are going to enforce when we go back for future meetings generally. So I think, as Councilmember Breckus has pointed out, we do have this whole issue in front of us tonight. Number one, I'm very much in favor of getting back to in-person meetings as soon as possible. And secondly, I don't think we should wait until we're satisfied that everybody in town has gotten vaccinated, or everybody that might want to come to our meetings has gotten vaccinated. That's just not practical. I think it's not asking a lot to ask, but not check, that nobody come to the meetings unless they're vaccinated, and basically tell people to get up out of their lazy boys and travel no more than a mile if they live in Ross to come down to our meetings, as they have been doing since 2009. I'm sorry, since 1909.
So, Beach, as far as the, trying to pick this off one thing at a time, the camera issue, where are you with, a video camera system? And then Councilmember Breckus, you're next.
Well, I don't think we need a video camera system. I think we can put in place protocols which are safe. You know, we take a risk every flu season. We don't know who comes into the council meeting who has the flu. We've just got to be, we can't wait until everything's perfect before we get back to in-person meetings. And we got along since as I said, since 1909 without having cameras. I think it's silly to have them now, to put in all this stuff, to hire somebody to come in and run these cameras. So that I don't think we're ever going to have more than 4 or 5 people. We're such a small town. I don't think we're ever going to have more than 4 or 5 people who watch if we put in cameras rather than coming down here. And I don't think for that number of people, it's justifiable to put in some system that has an operating cost to it.
Okay, so that, why don't we each go through that particular point? Do we add in like leaving out when we go back, and do we wear masks? Do we ask if people are vaccinated? Do we do nothing? Let's leave that aside for the moment and just work on where are we with, should we have a camera system so that people at home, pandemic or not, can comment from home. Let's do Councilmember Kircher and then Councilmember Breckus.
Yeah, my question was not so much about people participating from home, but council members who are traveling and not able to be present at the meeting, participating via Zoom. Do we have any indication of when we do go back to personal meetings, whatever legislation governs our meetings will permit remote attendance via Zoom by council members? I'm new enough to the council. I don't know how it worked since I've been at every council meeting before I came on the council. Could council members phone in, or what did they do?
So before the pandemic, the Brown Act allowed council members, if it was less than a quorum, to phone in if they were out of town. The caveat to that is wherever you're phoning from, you had to place a notice, a Brown Act notice outside your room and allow members of the public to come to that spot if they so desired. The pandemic, the governor during the pandemic, at the beginning of the pandemic, suspended that rule and allows all the council members right now to remote in rather than less than a quorum and not have to open up your space for other people. But at some point, that executive order, which was scheduled to actually expire on June 15th, the governor just announced that he's going to keep it, sounds like at least through the summer, and give local public entities ample warning before sunsetting it. So it'll allow public entities to continue to Zoom in the way we've been doing.
Well, to the extent that council members might be participating, I would think it would be helpful to have cameras, frankly, so that the person who's not able to attend and is attending via Zoom could be more a part of the meeting as opposed to having only audio. But I guess it really depends on when that executive order expires or is revoked, whether we're going to go back to the prior rules or whether there will be some new protocol. Anyway, I'm basically in favor of the cameras and so forth. I appreciate what Beach is saying, but I think encouraging public participation is a good thing. So I would be in favor of cameras. I don't think it's that expensive because these are webcams, but there is an operating expense. And of course, that's something to take into account too.
Thank you, Councilmember McMillan, and then Councilmember Breckus.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the cost of the technology and the monthly cost of having an operator sit there and film all our beautiful faces. And then I also just wanted to reiterate Bill's point that I'm all for increasing participation and transparency. And, you know, while I agree with what Beach is saying, I think if we don't do this, and we're one of the only jurisdictions that doesn't do this, it's going to look kind of odd that we're not offering this as a convenience to our residents. So I think we kind of have to do this. But Linda, maybe you could just fill us in on what the cost might be.
Well, as when we talked in April, the Community Media Center in Marin is going to provide all the technology for free. So we would just be paying for an operator who's, I believe, was $82.50 an hour. Is that correct, Joe?
Yeah, well, and it should be about $5,000 a year what we put in the budget, and that is in the budget. Because you're looking like we're going, there was a good chance you may go here. It's in the budget now, the videographer at $5,000 for next year.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so not a huge amount of money.
Thank you. Councilmember Breckus.
Well, I'm supportive of the idea of the video, so that's not hard for me. If we can avoid having it broadcast on local television, I'd probably be in support of that. But, you know, in part because I think that I really want Ross residents to participate. I don't know if we want to, you know, get to the point where we start having, like, you know, we try and have a conversation on bikes, and the next thing you know, we have 500 Marin bikers on the line. So I would like to make it convenient for people, and I think that's not hard for me to. But I also know, because I talked to Ben in advance, that he has dealt with this issue and question and concerns by other council members at other jurisdictions, and so it might be nice to have him tee it up on other legalities or issues or concerns that have had, because he's heard from them. And then Julie, your point about, you know, we don't want to be the only one that, I guess your point is we don't want to be the only one who doesn't go have a camera, which I agree with. I think that's fine. I don't think your point was we don't want to be the only one who doesn't go back in person. And it didn't sound like that was really even the case. People are still considering this.
Ben, did you have some comments?
Sure, I'll share you some of the conversations I'm having with various cities. I think the issue of cameras is also kind of tied into going back and your protocols, because if you want to establish some sort of protocols about masking or only allowing people who are vaccinated to come inside, which you're allowed to do, it would be, I would be concerned about not having the Zoom option for people who can't come. There'd be a due process issue. So that they're somewhat, you know, related if you adopt certain protocols. Just yesterday, I'm sure you all read in the paper, but yesterday the world changed again with the whole masking requirements. So the state moved first, and then OSHA last night moved again, and they're going to look at it again on the 17th. So there's, you know, at least in the short term, there's no resolution of what the rules are except for the existing rules. And because our public facility also houses employees, and officials are considered employees as well under the OSHA rules, we would have to require masking for everyone right now. But again, this is in a bit of a flux right now, and we'll have more idea of what the rules will look like from OSHA on June 17th.
Thank you. I also think that having the cameras are important because it lets people participate. I do think, I do agree with Elizabeth, there's no reason to put it on television. The point is participation live that night, and the rebroadcasts I think are sort of pointless. We've also had audio and you know, the visual with the Zoom online if people want to watch our meetings. So I don't know that they have to be, you know, broadcast on Channel 26 or whatever. The goal is public participation, not so much broadcast. So I think I don't know if we need a vote, but I think that 4 of us are comfortable going ahead with MCMC putting in the cameras and the cost, I kind of hate the cost, but of $5,000 a year to run that. As far as when to go back and what protocols, I think it's kind of early. I mean, it's early to make a decision. We're really just making it up if we're deciding anything tonight. We don't know what the CDC says. We don't know what the state says. We've got some guidelines because of employees working in the town hall. I would just punt and see where we are in July and then see if we can make some guidelines in July. But I don't know that we can make anything now.
Could I ask on the video part? There's a
Yes.
second part to this. So where we're at now is we put in cameras. And I would strongly suggest, as I said, that you do the 4 cameras with the operator versus the 1. I would think otherwise, I don't think it's unsatisfactory. If you guys want to talk that or thumbs up or thumbs down or more debate. But I think unless I hear otherwise, we'll look to do the 4 camera, or if they said 3 cameras would work versus the 1 camera option. So if I see heads nodding, or if you guys want to talk about that, let me know.
I mean, we did agree on the 3 at the last meeting.
Yeah, correct. Correct. And I just want to make sure we're
That's
still.
where we are. Councilmember Cool? You're muted.
Muted.
Councilmember Cool, you're muted.
This is an action item, isn't it? So we need to take a vote.
Well, let's get all the direction and yeah, and at some point we'll go to the public too, but I want to hear direction. And then if you want to
Forgot.
do a vote, you can, but there's a multi-parts to this because there's another part after this too.
Let's
So,
see if any members, Beach, do you have another comment? And after that, we'll see if any members of the public would like to make comments.
Well, I'm opposed to putting in a camera system if this is if we're providing guidance. Mine is, I don't think we ought to put in a camera system. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any comments from members of the public?
I don't see any raised hands, Mayor.
All right, then let's bring it back to the council for the camera issue. Do we have a majority, do we have a motion to?
wait, can I ask, there's another part of this because I want to get the right system. So I take it from before, I'm taking it unless I hear otherwise. If we're doing cameras, we're going to do the multi-cameras. Okay. Then the next part is what this is going to allow is that people could Zoom, they could see you and they could zoom in and talk, but you're not going to see their image unless you put on screens. That being said, it seems like people outside, about half the time at least, people aren't going on screen anyhow. But the goal is that they could be heard. But now if you want to be able to see them, we're going to have to put up screens on the walls in the chambers, which is the next level of technology.
You're right, Joe, you're right. Very few people most people keep their video off when they speak. I mean, I would just leave it that they can comment. That's the whole goal, is that they can comment. I mean, I'd be fine with just leaving it. I hadn't even thought of screens with their images, especially with people mostly blocking their video. I would just leave it, but what do others think?
If it's going to be useful for council members to also participate via Zoom, then maybe we want that.
Interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe we don't have to install that. Well, I don't know. Is that an additional cost, or is that technology also provided free from CMCM?
It's free.
That being said, I think you're going to change the character of your chambers when you.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of technology in there.
There's going to be a lot of, and your charming chambers is now going to have 2 big screens somewhere in between all these windows. And when it's lighting, you're not going to be able to see them anyhow, like a summer meeting, even like now, as you know, even when we project on the screen until it gets dark. You could always do, I think, the first part and wait on the second. And given there's a chance the governor will go back to saying you have to participate in person, maybe not, without the phone, as Ben said. Maybe it'll stay this way that council members could Zoom in once we're fully, next year, but maybe not. But I think you're changing the whole look of the chambers once you do this. And then we want to know, where do you want these screens in there? Because you look and you got our nice, rounded, beautiful, charming chambers, and now you're going to have 2 screens so the council could see one in the audience. So you'd need 2 that are going to be hung on the walls somewhere and have to be good enough size that people could see them.
Okay, I mean, I think a Zoom meeting like this is probably simpler than that. I would suggest we just stick with the 3 cameras that we've discussed and not add in screens. If somehow we feel that we really need it for some reason, we can do it. But I would just stick with the camera system alone and an operator. What do others think?
Agree.
I agree too. And I also think, we don't, as council members, we don't have to have 100% attendance. There are times when we're not available to attend, and, it's very difficult to participate via phone. I mean, we saw a couple times when people were trying to listen via phone. It's almost impossible. And I would think that even participating via Zoom, it would be very, very difficult, especially if other people are able to participate at the same time. Here's my co-counsel. So I agree with what Elizabeth said.
Councilmember Kircher, what are your thoughts about the screen?
It's been so long since we've been in the council chambers or the town hall. I know I've seen projections on a screen over on the side of the room when we have somebody with a PowerPoint, but wasn't that over to the side or something? I mean, if we had a large screen on the side, could we use it for other things like PowerPoints? Would it replace something?
Yeah, we would continue to have PowerPoint presentations
So
on the same projector in the same place.
we need that for the PowerPoint.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if there were a way to combine everything so that we use the same footprint or whatever, was that a screen that was lowered though, or what?
Yes.
Oh, it was, I see.
Yes.
So if we were using it for a projection setup with Zoom, that might be difficult to raise.
I can check. I'm not sure of the answer to that, but I can check.
Okay.
Councilmember Cool, do you have thoughts about, do you want screens showing people who are speaking? You're muted.
I don't want screens, period.
Okay. Well, I think that's 4 of us who've said that we
I
don't
understand
want
that.
screens. So I think, Joe, that gives you the direction for that. So yes to cameras, 3, and no to screens. Is there anything else you need for this element of the?
And just so you know, the cameras might be 4, it's whatever they suggest, but that's
Okay.
multiple cameras is what we have.
Okay. All right. And then, so that takes care of the video conferencing part. And I think that's great because that will let the public participate. I think that's helpful. But as far as, when and how we return, I mean, my suggestion is we just wait and let staff come back in a month when we have more clarity from the CDC and the state. Is there anything wrong with that approach, Joe?
I think that's good. What we wanted to do is get this technology starting to move, and that works fine because obviously we need to see what Cal OSHA is going to come up with because it's going to be different whatever we try to do now until we have the Cal OSHA rules. Yeah, I'd say that's fine.
Does anyone else have any comments about how we go back? Yes, Councilmember Cool.
I just wanted to point out, I think we have to take public comment on this.
Yes.
don't we? Or maybe we already tried.
She did ask Mayor.
Well, we were mostly talking about the camera. So do any members of the public have any comments about returning to the chamber's guidelines now or waiting until later?
There's no raised hands.
Okay. Councilmember Cool, your hand is still raised. You're finished? Okay. Joe, do we need a vote, or does that give you the direction that you need?
What do you,
We do not need a vote.
yeah, I think staff has a direction.
Fine. All right. Then now we're at item 13, annual evaluation report on progress towards implementation of the adopted 2018 multi-jurisdictional local hazard mitigation plan. Rich Simonich, that was quite a plan. I took a look at it. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Robbins, and members of the town council. Yeah, so in January 2019, council adopted the Marin County Multi-Jurisdictional Local Hazard Mitigation Plan, which evaluates hazard risk mitigation for 5 primary risk categories. We have earthquake, flooding, wildfire, landslide, and the Phoenix Lake Dam inundation, actually. So the local hazard mitigation plan describes the process for assessing hazards, risks, and vulnerabilities, and identifying and prioritizing mitigation actions for those 5 hazards that are not so much endemic to Ross, but those are hazards that we've identified that could actually happen and require some information to be provided to the public and in the form of the local hazard mitigation plan. And it's also very important that we do engage the public here to review the plan annually. Not just, these type of plans have a tendency to just sit on the shelf. We present them, we create them, and then it's very important that we do take a look at this annually to see how we are doing in our implementation of addressing these hazards in town. Also, FEMA has indicated that jurisdictions without this plan approved by FEMA and adopted by the local jurisdiction, those governing bodies will be ineligible for future pre and post disaster mitigation funds. And of course, FEMA is not just about flooding, it's about all these type of disasters and the impacts that can happen to any community as a result of having an earthquake or landslides or any of those type of identified hazards. And part of the what FEMA is compelling us to look at this plan on an annual basis is our community rating service CRS program that we have through FEMA, and you've probably heard that acronym several times. So CRS, it's an incentive program for the town to develop responses and plans to mitigate mainly flooding, but also these other hazards. This particular item falls under the floodplain management planning activity. Just to give you an idea of how CRS is structured really briefly, me presenting this annual evaluation is probably it gives us about 10 points out of about 1,500 possible points over 20 different types of record keeping and evaluation and reporting and public outreach for the CRS program. And we are currently in our annual audit for CRS, and we are currently looking to improve our CRS rating, which in turn will provide additional discounts on flood insurance premiums for our homeowners. So, and just real quick, I'm not going to go over every single item in the annual report, but there are a few noteworthy status updates from 2019 where we did present. There's 2 parts of it. There's the regional goals that encompass all of Marin County communities, because we all share kind of a similar geography and we all share the similar hazards. We all have the landslides, the wildfires, the flooding for the most part. So a lot of those certain mitigation measures and the identification of those hazards are common throughout Marin County. And then in the appendix of that, of the local hazard mitigation plan, we do have those mitigation measures that are particular to Ross. So for example, the upgrade of the storm drain system in Bolinas, that was identified as a necessary flooding mitigation effort in this plan. And so that's a checkbox that we were able to show that show FEMA and show the public that we've, we're investing in that type of infrastructure in compliance with our local hazard mitigation plan. We also, in 2019, we revamped certain sections of our floodplain ordinance. We added the 1 foot above the base flood elevation freeboard requirement, which is 1 foot higher than what FEMA requires as a minimum. So whenever we go beyond what FEMA requires by law, that agencies that belong to the National Flood Insurance Program, CRS gives us points for going beyond those baseline standards. We're currently in regulatory permitting for installing a flap gate at the Bolinas drain outlet that's underneath the Winship Bridge. That flap gate will keep the floodwaters from backing up onto Bolinas Boulevard when the Corte Madera Creek rises in that location of the Winship Bridge. Chipper days, for setting up the chipper days, that was identified in the local hazard mitigation plan as something that, find a program that gets the community involved with curbside chipper recycling. We've also recently added the disclosure of those properties that are within the Phoenix Lake Dam failure inundation area to add those to resale inspections that those need to be disclosed that property is within the Phoenix Lake Dam inundation area. And just a few words on that. The Phoenix Lake Dam gets certified and inspected every year. In the 80s, they lowered the water surface elevation of Phoenix Lake by 8 feet, and that reduced a lot of the hydrostatic pressure on the dam. So it's actually a very safe dam, according to the officials the state officials that do the certification. But it is identified as a very high hazard dam. So we want to keep an eye on that and make sure property owners who purchase and sell properties within that zone are notified. So really, that's all I have for this presentation. It's important to know we have this plan. It's full of a lot of great information on these types of hazards: wildfire, flooding, the dam inundation maps, the repetitive loss properties in Ross. Just a great amount of information. I encourage everybody to take a look at the plan and take a look at the annual report, see how we're doing, and also come up with some ideas for, what's the next type of mitigation we want to take a look at, that we want to vet through this plan, which is up for readoption in 2024. We have a little bit of time, and we've met all the requirements now for FEMA. We're good for pre and post disaster funding. We're in pretty good shape, but anybody who would like to give me a suggestion or give staff a suggestion on where to go in 2024, we are available to receive that information and implement it into the plan. So that concludes my report for tonight.
Rich, thank you very much. Are there any questions from council members for Rich about the hazard mitigation plan? Councilmember McMillan.
Thank you. Rich, I just wondered if sea level rise is something that we should be considering down the road.
I think that is something that is included in the regional mitigation measures. It's something that could be considered in Ross. Yeah, we don't currently experience even king tides start creeping up to around where the tennis courts are in the channel, but definitely something that should be looked at. Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Are there any questions from members of the public about the local hazard mitigation plan? Attendees.
I don't see any raised hands, Mayor.
Oh, I don't either. Thank you. Then we'll bring it back to the council. Any other comments or discussion? Then Rich, thank you very much for presenting the update on the local hazard mitigation plan. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mayor.
Item 14, Town Manager Joe Chin, update on any town activities in response to COVID. Joe?
Thank you, Mayor and council members. Obviously, a lot is going on this topic. And we talked a little about the Cal OSHA, but first, just in summarizing some of the things heard from Dr. Matt Willis today, the County Public Health Officer. Marin County has vaccinations. 73% of our 12 to 17-year-olds have been vaccinated. The next highest county in the state is San Francisco. It's like 54%. So Marin is way more vaccinated. He said as of 2 or 3 weeks ago, Marin had the highest vaccination rate of any county in the country. So you've got Marin, and obviously when the testing was happening, we were testing at higher rates too, so it's not only vaccinations, we were testing at high rates. Part of the result is our death rate in Marin per 1,000 people is about half the rate of the state, which in the state slightly lower than the country. So Marin did very well comparatively. Then he had a chart, this is the first time I see this one, he had a chart listing every area of the county and the vaccination rates. And in our case, they had, so remember, we are the most vaccinated county in the state and probably in the country. And then they broke down areas of the county, and ours was called Ross, Kentfield, and Larkspur. And our area of the county had the highest vaccination rate of any place in the county of Marin. So we're in the highest county of vaccination. We're in the highest area of vaccination in Marin. So obviously in the country. So it was like somewhere like 93% of the people that could be vaccinated have been vaccinated in Ross, Kentfield, Larkspur combined. June 15th, coming around the corner with the state order and matching CDC, there will be no more tier systems. Obviously, we're in the yellow tier, that goes away. All sectors and businesses can fully open. There are no capacity limits outside of if you have mega events. You could have up to 5,000 people indoors and 10,000 people outdoors. So I don't think anything in Marin's going to hit that. There's no mask requirements as of June 15th for anybody under the CDC on June 15th and state public health for outdoors, whether vaccinated or unvaccinated. He did then go into Cal OSHA, which is, I think, the town attorney mentioned, yesterday rescinded its prior order and isn't meeting again now till June 17th. They're out of line with CDC and County Public Health Department. So for now, and if they act on June 17th, it's at the end of June before the new rules. So Cal OSHA is really determining what could happen indoor and with businesses, and obviously the town's a business are in that category. And so nothing changes here of how we operate with mask or not mask and all that through at least June 30th or whenever the new guidelines, whatever Cal OSHA adopts the 17th, that will go in effect a little later. So, and that is, I'm just going my notes if there's anything else, but yeah. But so we wait again on Cal OSHA to determine, but obviously what CDC and California Public Health things are open. It's just really the Cal OSHA requirements that are not opening things quite the same. So that is my report. If there's any questions, and I may or may not be able to answer them.
Thank you very much, Joe. Are there any questions of council members for Joe? Are there any questions from members of the public for Joe?
No hands raised.
All right. Well, then, thank you. Any discussion of council members? Then let's move. Thank you very much, Joe. Now we'll move on to the planning projects. Item number 16 is 187 Prospect Avenue, design review and variance, and town council consideration of adoption of resolution number 2208. And Matthew Weintraub, the town planner, will present this, this project.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'll begin my screen presentation. The property is the Stewart Residence at 187 Prospect Avenue. As shown here, it's on the east side of Prospect, north of Wellington Avenue. And the property characteristics, it's a 20,000 square foot lot in a 10,000 square foot district. So it's twice the minimum lot size. Has a substantial slope. It's not a hillside lot, but it does have substantial slope. Currently contains a single family residence and a detached garage at the north half of the lot, and mature trees around the perimeter and an open central south lawn at the south half of the lot. Some property history, according to the assessor, the major development dates were 1918 and 1985, and variances were issued by the town in 1965 and 1989. And here is the proposed project. Please note the orientation has been shifted, so north is now to the left of the screen and the front of the property is now at the bottom of the screen. So the project proposes to rehabilitate the south yard landscape, including a new pool, a patio and shade structure. Those features are located here. Low walls, fences, and plantings throughout the rest of the area, and as well as a biodetention area located here to manage stormwater runoff. The project conforms to the zoning code with one exception. The only exception being asked for is to locate the patio and the open shade structure in the rear yard setback due to the unusual configuration of the lot, which is curved and doesn't really provide a rear yard to the property the way it's developed. Here are some project details showing the open shade structure, essentially an arbor structure with a lattice type roof, as well as a 5-foot front yard fence with a wood gate, and also a 5-foot pool equipment screen as well. And I will note that the pool equipment is located in this location, also complying with setbacks. And also going back to the site plan, we can see that plantings have been added in and around all the new structures. So in front of the walls, there will be creeping ivy. In front of the new front yard fence, there will be tall hedge plantings to screen the view and soften the view there. And also the fence has been moved back from the front property line to provide sort of gracious front lawn area to the public. The Advisory Design Review Group recommended approval on May 18th with some minor revisions. They did recommend that green screening be added in front of the walls. The applicant has done that. They recommended setting back the front yard fence and obscuring it with plantings. The applicant has done that as well. And they recommended improving the screening at the equipment enclosure, which is located here. So the applicant has essentially taken what was previously more of a formal arrangement and created an informal planting arrangement that blends better with the landscape on site. So the applicant has implemented the ADR group's recommendations. Public comments have been received from all the adjacent property owners who do support the project, including the owners who are adjacent to the rear yard encroachment for the patio and the shade structure, and the owners who are adjacent to the mechanical equipment enclosure. The owner of 15 Wellington also commented that they support the ADR group's recommendations with respect to the front yard fence, which have been implemented by the applicant. So some key issues to consider. The variance request, it's really a minor variance request to locate the patio and the shade structure in the rear yard area. Staff supports that the findings can be made based on the superior design that would result from the project. Their privacy and screening, the project is again supported by the adjacent neighbors, and the ADR group recommendations have been implemented with respect to privacy and screening. And lastly, hydrology. The biodetention area was designed at 200% capacity needed to accommodate for the increased impervious surface. So that pretty much guarantees that the stormwater runoff rates would not increase and may actually decrease as a result of the project. Some other issues for the applicant to consider are the drought restrictions that are currently in effect by MMWD, which do require that pools be covered when not in use. There may or may not be further restrictions coming forth. And here's the website for MMWD for that information. So permits requested are design review for various aspects of the project that require design review, as well as a variance for the minor encroachment of the patio and the shade structure within the rear yard. Staff recommends adoption of resolution number 2208, approving design review and variance for the landscape rehabilitation at 187 Prospect Avenue. That concludes my presentation. I believe the applicant, or I should say project designer, Scott Sekaris, is also available to present, and I'm available to answer any questions. Thank you, and with that, I will close my presentation.
Thank you, Matthew. Are there any questions of council? Do council members have any questions for Matthew? Councilmember Breckus. Councilmember Breckus, we don't hear you.
Oh, sorry about that. So Matthew, I just want to understand the setback, or I mean, the variance is for the structure in the setback, but it's not, the dimensions of the shade structure are, can you just go over what that is?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Let me go ahead and bring up my screen again with that information. And so here is the elevation of the shade structure. So it would be approximately 10 feet tall, or I should say actually 11 1/4 inches at the top. The dimensions, the width and depth are actually not provided here. Let's see if we can go to the site plan for that information.
And Matthew, should Scott Sekaris speak now, or do you want to answer the question? How should we do that?
I would gladly let Scott provide that information. I believe he probably has that ready.
Okay. Linda, can you let Scott in?
I can't with the screen share going on.
Oh,
Okay, now I can get him in.
thank you.
Go ahead, Scott.
Hello, Mayor. Hello, council members. My name's Scott Sekaris. The trellis itself is, and I have to say, this is so small, and it's 9 feet deep by 13.5 long. So that's the dimensions in plan view of the trellis structure.
And
Thank
so
you.
is, I'm sorry, can I just ask, is there I'm looking at A 1.0. Is
Mhm.
there like a shade structure, a break, and then a shade structure? And then what you're giving us is the dimension of the length for the entirety of that?
It is, I'm sorry, it's 17.8. You guys could probably see it better than I can. We could bring it up on the screen, but I can't share at that point. So yeah, it's 17.4 by 9 something, and I apologize. We have an architect who put this together. We didn't feel it was necessary for him to be here, but I'm sorry. So those are the plan dimensions of the outside of the trellis structure.
Okay. I mean, I guess what I was just questioning with this structure, which honestly, you go up there, it's a nice big lot. I didn't see any issue with the pool, but under our definitions, it falls within our definition of a building. It falls within our definition of a structure. It falls within our definition of floor area ratio. So should we count it towards that? I wasn't quite 100% sure whether it was. And so I just was getting confused because it seemed like the only variance that was required, and maybe that's right, is for this item to be in the setback. But I wasn't sure if it was analyzed as being floor area and lot coverage, which I think it should be.
I think I can comment to that. So staff is definitely seeing this as a structure. It is a structure being proposed in the setback. It doesn't qualify as floor area because it does not have a roof. It's essentially, it has an open roof. I mean, it has basically a trellis, an open framework. So that would not allow it to be considered, a habitable building. It would not be qualify as, enclosed living space. So from that perspective, and also if we do look at the, our definition of floor area, there are some inclusions for floor area, such as porches that are greater than 10 feet in depth, whether or not they're enclosed. This is not a porch. This is clearly a detached landscape structure that avoids the definition of a building in staff's opinion. So therefore it would not represent floor area or count towards the FAR or the building coverage on the lot. It does count towards impervious surface coverage.
Does it have power, electricity or plumbing? And if it did, does that change how the structure is viewed?
Certainly if it had plumbing, I think that would raise some questions as to how it would be used. It currently has no utilities proposed. There's no lighting, there's no illumination. It's essentially just a structure.
Trellis, okay.
Well, I just wanted to point out though, the definition of floor area is floor area ratio, is floor area ratio means the floor area of the building or buildings on a lot divided by the area of that lot. And so then you say, okay, well, how many buildings are there? And then you go to the definition of buildings and it does seem to include this. Now, again, I could live with a different definition. I just wanted to make sure it says, building means any structure having a roof supported by columns and or walls and intended for the use of any person's animal or chattel. Doesn't this, it maybe has a slotted roof. Does it not, are you saying it, and maybe this comes back to the one that we talked about before where, we talked about, well, what if it's slotted and what if it can close? And so does this close, by the way?
Okay, I can speak to that. No, this has no roof whatsoever. If you were out there in the rain, you would get wet. There is no closing roof or any structure like that. It's basically a structure to grow vines on. It's a structure for landscaping to grow on.
And so it doesn't have they have a lot of new ones that have louvers that you can close.
Nope.
And it doesn't have that.
No.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Are there any other questions? Then let's see if any members of the public have any comments to make about the project. And if you would like to speak, please raise your hand.
There's no raised hands.
Thank you. Let's bring this back to the council level for discussion. And if there's no discussion, a motion. Any discussion? Councilmember McMillan.
Oh, I was just going to move to approve resolution number 2208.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
And Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much. Now we are at item 17, 7 Upper Ames Avenue, design review, accessory dwelling unit, and nonconformity permit, and town council consideration of adoption of resolution number 2209. Matthew Weintraub.
Thank you again, Mayor and council members. The item before you is the Millman residence at 7 Upper Ames Avenue. The property is located on the south side of Upper Ames, on the west side of Shady Lane, as shown here in the location map. And the property is a 1 acre property in a 1 acre district. It's essentially flat, contains a single family residence and accessory buildings in a rather distributed complex sort of shape on the lot. There is existing non-conforming floor area and coverage on the lot that has been legally permitted in the past. Property history includes major development dates of 1953 and 1990, according to the assessor. The town has issued variances for residential improvements and additions in 1994 and 1998. This year, staff issued a minor nonconformity permit for some residential alterations that have been incorporated into the current project scope for reference. So, so staff wants to make sure the council has a complete view of the current project. So all of the work that was approved under the minor nonconformity permit is described in the current project, just for clarity. So there's no parsing out of a previous project and the new project. And let me know if you have any questions on that. So the current project and the total project includes facade renovation and additions. Here we have the existing front elevation and the proposed front elevation. We can see that the project proposes to lift the roof line and increase the building height somewhat, as well as add an addition to this end of the house. The addition would include a new 2-car garage with a guest suite, which is basically a bedroom and a bathroom up above. The existing garage in this location would actually be converted to an internal accessory dwelling unit, which is permitted under the code. So that would be an internal attached accessory dwelling unit within the main unit with its own independent access. And then this area here, while raised, would not represent an actual second story. This is just vaulted 1-story space within the main residence. Here is the pre-project plan showing some of the areas and that would be removed, as well as some of the areas that would be improved. So this, whoops, go back to this. This is the existing single-family residence. It had pre-project, it has a sort of detached studio wing here, and there's a pool house or pool equipment house in this location. Again, these are the pre-project conditions. And this is a picture of the existing front porch, covered front porch, which is greater than 10 feet in depth and which is proposed as part of the project to be removed and that floor area transferred to a new addition. I'll now go to the proposed post-project plan. So this shows what the project would ultimately result in. It would connect the main residence with the studio structure. It would remove this front porch here. It would also remove an enclosed area here, which would create an open area here. And in addition, it would remove over here, it would remove the pool equipment room as well. So there's a lot going on, and we can go back and revisit this. So there's some removals, and then there's additions. The additions to the property include transferring the floor area that would be converted to an accessory dwelling unit to the new garage. And that is permitted with an ADU exception, which is allowed under the code to transfer ADU floor area to a new addition. So that would be part of it, is to transfer that floor area to the new garage. And then above the garage would be the new guest suite, essentially. And that floor area would come from the removed part of the removed covered front porch, part of this removed area here, as well as part of the pool equipment room that's also to be removed. And then there would also be a small pool bath that would be constructed in the location of the former pool equipment room. Here's a floor area detail table. And so what we can see is here at the bottom, it shows that floor area is essentially being removed from existing accessory structures and from porches that have a depth of greater than 10 feet, which qualify as floor area. And up above, we can see that floor area is being added to the primary residence, the interior of the primary residence, as well as the ADU, which cancels itself out in terms of floor area. So again, floor area being moved from accessory structures and covered porches to the main structure, and overall resulting in a more compact plan on the property. The project also includes a landscape rehabilitation that is consistent with the Ross Valley Fire Department requirements. This landscape plan shows the defensible space zones implemented by the Ross Valley Fire Department. Part of the project includes replacing the existing pool essentially in its same location, as well as extensive landscape plantings around the property. Just today, the plan was revised to add some landscape plantings on this end of the property adjacent to the new addition. That was at the request of the adjacent property owner at 9 Upper Ames. And in the front of the property, the existing horseshoe drive would be removed, and a more proper auto court driveway would be constructed, leading to the new 2-car garage. The advisory design review group reviewed the project and approved it as recommended approval as proposed on May 18th, 2021, without revisions. Public comments have been received. The owner of 3 Upper Ames, who is adjacent to the property, has indicated that they did not receive the ADR group notice. Staff went back and checked the noticing, and we did include 3 Upper Ames, the post office box of record for the owner, in the noticing. So we don't know what happened to that notice. All we can say is that the town did send proper notice for the ADR group hearing. That being said, the owner did not participate in the ADR group process. And they have raised some concerns about the chimney feature that's being proposed for the roof, which would be on their side of the property, essentially, in about this location. They've also raised some concerns about raising the second story and the roof profile. Staff would note that the roof changes adjacent to 3 Upper Ames are actually minimal, that the major roof changes are actually more on this side of the property. And also raised concerns about window changes on that side of the building as well, which staff believes are fairly minor. Also, public comments were received from the owner of 14 Upper Ames and 2 Ames Avenue. Those owners, one requested more street parking, on-street parking, which is actually not the responsibility of the applicant or the project to provide that. And the owner of 2 Ames also requested compliance with construction work rules and requested that off-street parking be utilized for construction vehicles. They support the project, but they want to make sure that it's constructed in a way that follows the town's construction rules. And that would be implemented through the construction management plan through the building permit stage. So the key issues, I believe, for the town council are the ADR group is bulk and mass. The ADR group does support the new roof profile and the architectural elevations that would result. The floor area results in no increase to non-conforming floor area through the process, through the project. And that includes the previously issued minor nonconformity permit work. With respect to off-street parking, the project does provide the minimum required for off-street spaces, including 2 covered, and it actually replaces the garage space that's converted to an ADU, which is not required. So the project theoretically could fill in the garage and not replace it if that was the desire of the owner, but they are providing the covered parking. And also with respect to hydrology, it does reduce the total amount of impervious surfaces on the property, which would pretty much guarantee that stormwater runoff rates would not increase as a result of the project. Some other key issues, particularly as brought up by the owner at the adjacent owner at 3 Upper Ames, in terms of views, the design review code states that views of the hills and ridge lines from public streets and parks should be preserved where possible through these measures. It does not address views from private property. So I would note that the current project is conforming to setbacks and as well as to the height limit, and that would appear to provide appropriate protection for the neighbor in terms of views. Also in terms of privacy, the new east side facing windows at the front of the house on the project are located at the 1st story and are offset from the adjacent residence. So again, staff believes that that's a fairly minor issue that has been called up basically. Again, other issues that the owner should consider are again just the MMWD drought restrictions requiring a pool cover for all pools. So the permits requested are design review for the aspects of the project that trigger the design review requirement, an ADU permit exception to transfer the amount of existing floor area converted to an ADU as a floor area allowance to a new addition. Otherwise, the ADU permit is ministerial. The only exception needed is again to transfer the floor area to allow for a new addition, and a nonconformity permit to allow for the existing single-family residence to be enlarged, extended, and structurally altered without increasing the square feet of non-conforming floor area on the property. So staff recommends adopting resolution number 2209, approving design review, ADU permit, and nonconformity permit for the residential renovation and landscape rehabilitation at 7 Upper Ames Avenue. That completes my presentation. I'm available to answer any questions you have. I believe the project designer of Geisler Architects is also available to answer questions and present information. Thank you, and I will now close my presentation.
Thank you, Matthew. Are there any questions for Matthew from council members? Councilmember McMillan.
Yeah, thank you. Matthew, I'm just wondering, I noticed that there's a pretty big area of artificial turf kind of in the middle by the pool. Is that counted as impervious surfaces?
I don't know offhand. I'm looking for the impervious surface calculations right now. We may also, that might be a good question to ask the architect as well.
Okay.
I'll continue to look for that information.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Then are there any questions or sorry, are there any comments from members of the public? And the architect and owner can continue the presentation if they would like. 15 minutes total are allowed per presentation. So any comments from members of the public or the architects?
I'm bringing the architect and the applicant in, Mayor.
Okay. Fine, thank you. Any comments from either of you?
Hi, this
Michael
is
or the architect?
Sorry, Steve Geisler, can you hear me? I've lost the screen, isn't up.
Yes, we do hear you.
Okay. Unfortunately, the screen's gone now, but just a couple comments if I could. I met a few of you out on site, and I think you found that the parcel in general was well vegetated and had nice privacy from adjoining neighbors. One of our goals in designing or redesigning the structure was to make sure that that privacy was kept in place for both the benefit of our clients and adjoining neighbors. We actually looked at doing a full 2-story house and reducing the coverage, but found that its impact on the immediate neighbors would be fairly severe and decided not to do that. Having said that, what we did want to do was conform to or bring the project up to the new Ross design guidelines, which very clearly states that the garage should not be the major feature of your house, that a front porch and or an entry sequence should address the street and have a nice communication with the street. So what we did was remove the major driveway and garage doors from the facade. We moved those around to an auto court, and we were fortunate to have an upsloping portion of the street and well-vegetated area that helped hide that garage courtyard area. The courtyard area was already graded flat, so we didn't have to do any additional grading. We created a new central front porch, which nicely addresses the street. And interestingly enough, when we did some demolition in there, we found that that's where the original front porch from the 1950s house was located. So just sort of by coincidence, the original house had the same ideas. We removed the porch and long walkway that was adjacent to number 3 Ames, and recovered that area and transferred it to the new garage area and the second story, which accommodates guests of the owners. They have family that comes and stays for extended periods, and so they wanted a nice place where there was privacy and could accommodate their guests. But what the other part of that, what the other nice feature of that is, it eliminated pedestrian traffic from the edge of the property. It moved it to the central of the property. So that our neighbor to the east at number 3 Ames, we increased the privacy there. I do want to point out that we took some photos, and unfortunately I can't see my screen. So we've provided you with a site plan with some photos that show where the views from adjoining properties look at our project. Number 3 Ames, we've added only one window to the east facade. The window is well forward of their house. As a matter of fact, it aligns with their driveway space, and it's completely hidden. It's on the first floor, as Matthew pointed out, and is completely hidden by existing vegetation. To the west, at number 11 Ames, we do have our driveway on that side. The neighbors have had a nice conversation with the owners, our clients, and we were happy to provide some new trees that would help screen or additionally screen the new garage and second story guest accommodation. And I will point out that because the topography there is a significant rise from our parcel to the adjoining parcel. So the hedging is doing the existing hedging is doing a very nice job of screening. However, there's sort of a hole, if you will, between the top of the hedge and the underside canopy of the existing trees. So what we proposed is planting 3 new good-sized trees on our property that would fill in that gap between top of hedge and underside of existing tree. The rest of the project is, I don't want to dwell on it too much. You've seen the numbers where we're decreasing floor area, we're transferring coverage. We are trying to be very neighbor friendly by not doing second story additions. We are using sort of typical Ross materials, stained shingles as opposed to painted shingles, some nice facades, and using those front gables to bring light into the middle of the house. So without dwelling too much more on this, I'm happy to answer any questions and or receive comments from council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there do council members have any questions for Steve? Councilmember McMillan.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm just wondering if the artificial turf is counted as impervious surface or not.
You know, this is embarrassing to say, but the landscape architect might be on the line.
Yes,
I think Dustin is. Mhm.
Yes, she is.
Okay.
Linda, can you bring in Janelle Hobart?
I think it's Dustin.
It's Dustin, they said. Dustin.
Sorry.
Dustin, yeah.
Here we go. Go ahead, Dustin.
Sorry, I was mute.
Now we hear
I
you.
checked with our associate and we did count the artificial turf in the impermeable counts.
Great, thank you. I really don't like artificial turf, but the drought is killing everyone. So I don't know what the good solution is. So I'm not going to say anything about your artificial turf because we're kind of all between a rock and a hard spot right now. So, but thank you for counting it as impermeable. I think that's the right call.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Are there any other questions? And members of the public, any questions? Then let's bring it back to the council. Oh, council, yes. So Councilmember Breckus.
I just had a question about the the chimney structure. So if I'm correct, that's kind of back behind one of the, there were like the way it looked like when I was out there was you had a bit of a peak and a dormer, and then behind it, there was kind of a fairly large rectangular structure that was going to be the chimney. And I wondered why it was so large. Is it, is it accommodating multiple chimney flues or what was the decision there?
So I can answer that. So what we were doing, because we had a great desire to leave the majority of that long ridge line alone, we didn't want to lift it to create any additional mass on the site. So we used the chimney to catch the backside of that gable. And we're also doing a mechanical system in the house that pressurizes the house during wildfire so that the occupants inside who have some fairly major allergies and other breathing issues, we're going to pressurize the house. And so there's mechanical equipment going inside of there that's both acts as a filtration system and a pressurizing system for the house in the event of wildfires, which unfortunately we're all seeing too often and is going to be used on a pretty significant basis. I will point out that it's only 11 inches higher than the gable that's directly in front of it.
Mm-hmm. And then you never heard from the neighbor at 3 Ames before they emailed just this past week?
No, we didn't. And just so we're really clear on that, not only did the town reach out to them, but the owners my clients also reached out to them. And as soon as we got the email, I phone called, and then there was another email sent and we haven't heard back. And by the way, I also think that if the slide is up, I went on the roof and took a photograph of their project or their property, sorry, and their residence from exactly standing at the peak of that chimney. And all we see is their roof. They don't have any windows that view that. I think that they might have been confused in thinking that we were adding on to the house over the existing long ridge line that runs north-south close to their property, when in fact we're leaving all that alone. And we chose to do that so it wouldn't bother their views or disturb their privacy.
Okay, and then the question about parking in front of the street, it seemed to me that what somebody was saying is that there would be room for street parking if there weren't some boulders. But then when I look at the front of the drawing that you just had up a little bit ago, it doesn't seem like there are any boulders. And I can't tell what's right away and what's the private property. So I'm a little confused as to whether it's, you're not required to provide street parking on your own private property, but if that's right of way in front, I couldn't tell what was happening. And
Yeah, so there is a site plan, and those boulders are right at the edge of the private property, on the private property. And I understand that the street is narrow and there's always a desire to create more street parking, but that is part of our property. And during the Architectural Review Board meetings, it was very clear, and we've been very clear, that we want to keep that area well vegetated to screen the garage, which is our two-story structure, from the rest of the street and the people that move up and down the street.
mm-hmm.
And I will point out, by the way, that not only are we putting in the 2 garage spaces, but we have an auto court that will accommodate at least another 4 cars. And then the entrance to the auto court could accommodate another 1 to 2 cars. So we are getting rid of the parking directly in front of the house that addresses the street, and we're moving it behind a hedge and fence and creating more parking for this particular site.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
But you're saying that the boulders are on private property anyway, correct?
That's as I look at the survey, I believe that's correct.
Fine. Councilmember Cool.
Can somebody tell me, is Upper Ames a private street?
I don't know.
It is.
That's what I
Yeah,
thought.
Upper Ames is a privately maintained street.
Okay. Are there any other questions or comments or discussion?
Madam Mayor, there is a hand in the public wishing to speak.
Yes, I'm going to bring her in. Go ahead, Brandy.
Oh, Brandy's part of Steve's team.
Oh,
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. So if there's any other
Very
questions or any slides needed, we have Brandy available also. Thank you.
All right, then let's bring it back to any more discussion? And if there's no more discussion, does anyone want to make a motion?
Move to approve.
Second from from Councilmember McMillan, is that correct?
Yeah, correct. Thank you.
okay, let's take the vote. How do you vote, Councilmember Breckus?
Aye.
Councilmember Kircher?
Aye.
Councilmember Cool?
Aye.
Councilmember McMillan?
Aye.
And Mayor Robbins?
Aye.
And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the
Enjoy your
notice.
new house. Thank you. So now we are at council correspondence. Do any council members, did any council members have correspondence that they would like to share? You know, the only one I wanted to mention was that we had a letter about the height of fences in front yards. And I wasn't sure if that's something that, maybe I'll talk with the planners. Is that, you know, do we allow 6-foot fences in the front yard? Basically, that was the question. Is that something that we could, should I talk with Matthew or Patrick about it, or put it on the agenda? You know, this person was concerned that we have a lot of fences that are too high in the front.
We could talk with staff and see then if there's anything you're thinking that should go to council.
Okay, all right, I'll do that. Future council items. Does anyone have any future council items? Seeing none, I will adjourn the meeting. The meeting is adjourned. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Night.